The winter skies over Europe in 1944 were already a place of terror. Bombers roared toward German cities. Night fighters prowled the darkness. Searchlights carved through the clouds while flak burst in blinding flashes. But amid the familiar dangers of war, Allied pilots began reporting something far stranger than guns or Messerschmitts. They spoke of glowing orbs, lights that danced in formation, stalked their planes, and then vanished without a trace. Lights that outran aircraft, objects that ignored radar, weapons that should not exist, and yet were there. They called them Foo Fighters. It began with the 415th Night Fighter Squadron. Flying over the Rhine Valley in November 1944, crews reported 8 to 10 bright orange lights off the wing, flying at high speed. At first they thought it was flak, but flak did not maneuver. Flak did not vanish, then reappear miles away as if playing a game. These lights moved in formation, executed impossible turns, and dissolved when pursued. Again and again, pilots described the same thing: spheres of light, red, orange, or white, pacing their aircraft. Sometimes they appeared in pairs, sometimes in whole clusters, weaving like a squadron of their own. They never registered on radar. They emitted no sound. They simply stalked the night. Donald J. Myers, a radar observer, gave them their name. Borrowing from a nonsense word in a comic strip, he called them Foo Fighters. The name was whimsical. The terror was not. One pilot confessed, "Scared shitless. They flew alongside us. We dove. They were there." The Allies feared a new German weapon. The Reich had already unleashed the V1 and the V2, machines that changed warfare forever. Was this another miracle device? Some believed they were balls of plasma, engineered to blind pilots. Others suggested they were electronic warfare, a directed energy weapon decades ahead of its time. The U.S. military took the claims seriously. In December 1944, Allied headquarters issued a press release describing the sightings as a new enemy weapon. Yet no wreckage was ever found. No captured device. Only testimony. Scientists tried to explain it away. Some said the lights were ball lightning. Others blamed St. Elmo's fire, a natural glow known to dance on the wings of planes in storms. But the pilots rejected those answers. They knew the difference. These objects had intelligence. They responded. They moved with purpose. Then came the twist that deepened the mystery. German pilots reported seeing the same strange orbs. Some swore the Allies had created a new form of aerial terror. If both sides believed the other was responsible, then who, or what, was building them? After the war, Foo Fighters became part of declassified intelligence reports. They were filed not as illusions, but as unidentified aerial phenomena. And when the world slipped into peacetime, the sightings did not end. Reports came from the Pacific Theater, then from civilians. Soon, the same patterns, the discs, the lights, the impossible craft, would ignite the post-war UFO craze. So what were the Foo Fighters? Hallucinations brought on by exhaustion, a quirk of the atmosphere, or the first test flights of something no nation would ever admit to building? They left no debris, no captured examples, no official explanation, only whispers. And in those whispers grew a legend that Nazi Germany, in its last desperate days, had reached for technology that seemed to belong to another world. In the ashes of a collapsing Reich, Allied soldiers uncovered fragments of blueprints that should not have existed. Not jets, not rockets, but discs, machines shaped like the UFOs of the future, drawings so radical they looked less like weapons of war than vehicles of another world. By 1944, Nazi Germany was desperate, yet its scientists still reached for the impossible. The world already knew of their terror weapons: the V1 buzz bomb, the V2 rocket, the first true ballistic missile. Then came the jets, the Messerschmitt Me-262, the Horten HO-229 flying wing. When American engineers later studied the captured HO-229, they realized it was stealthy by design, its smooth body almost invisible to radar of the 1940s. If that much was real, what else had the Reich been building in its hidden hangars? That question haunted the Allies as they sifted through ruins. Among burned files and shattered laboratories appeared sketches of aircraft without wings, circular, domed, and unlike anything that had ever flown. The most infamous would later be called the Haunebu, a disc said to rise vertically, hover, and streak across the sky at impossible speeds. Alongside it were rumors of a Vril craft, powered not by fuel or engines, but by a mysterious force field drawn from the Earth itself. No one ever captured such machines. No wreckage was displayed. Yet the idea refused to vanish. Testimonies appeared. Rudolf Schreiber, a Luftwaffe engineer, claimed he designed a circular aircraft with Klaus Habermohl. According to later accounts, it lifted off in Prague in 1945, blazing upward with a roar unlike any jet. Witnesses described a blinding glow, a disk that hovered before shooting skyward. Was it real, or a fantasy of men facing defeat? Allied intelligence officers could not decide. Some dismissed the sketches as propaganda, but others noticed that similar diagrams surfaced in multiple locations, scattered across Germany, hidden in workshops, stashed in SS research facilities. If they were hoaxes, why did they appear again and again? Then came the names of men like Andreas Epp, who insisted after the war that he worked on prototypes of flying discs. His claims remain disputed, yet Allied reports mention him by name. Coincidence or confirmation? What makes the mystery sharper is what cannot be explained away. Germany had the talent. It had engineers already pushing aviation decades ahead of their time. The Horten flying wing alone proved that radical designs were not beyond reach. If a stealth bomber could emerge from the forests of Thuringia in 1945, could a disc-shaped aircraft be so unthinkable? And then there were the disappearances. In the final months as Allied forces closed in, whole teams of German scientists vanished. Some resurfaced under Operation Paperclip, working in America on rocketry and aerospace. Others were taken by the Soviets, but some names were never found again. Their projects erased, their files missing, their work whispered to have continued somewhere else. If disc craft were built, perhaps they were destroyed before capture, or perhaps they were hidden, spirited away to secret sites in the Alps, the Black Forest, even Antarctica. That idea would later grow into one of the darkest legends of the war, that the Reich's most advanced machines were never lost, only buried in silence. Official history remembers the rockets and jets, but in the shadows lie fragments of another story, discs that defied aerodynamics, propulsion theories no textbook could explain, and eyewitness claims that refused to fade. And so the question lingers. Were the Foo Fighters that haunted the skies of 1944 truly illusions of war, or the first glimpses of Nazi technology the world was never meant to see? In hidden workshops of the Reich, engineers sketched machines that looked like nothing on Earth. Vast, circular craft, armored and silent, that should not have existed in 1945. They were called Haunebu, allegedly built in secret, tested in silence, and erased from history before the Allies arrived. The claims emerged in fragments, drawings, testimonies, scattered accounts. They described a series of discs unlike any known aircraft. The first, Haunebu 1, was said to lift 8 men into the sky, a miracle for 1944. The second, Haunebu 2, allegedly pierced the stratosphere, brushing the edge of space. The third was described as a fortress in the sky, 70 meters across, a weapon too large to hide. If these were fabrications, why were they drawn like blueprints, not fantasies? Mainstream historians call them myths, inventions born after the war. Yet the diagrams exist. They turn up in Allied collections, in archives opened decades later, in files attributed to captured engineers. They are technical, precise, complete with cross-sections and measurements. Whether genuine or forged, they were crafted to look real. At the heart of these designs lay a mystery, the alleged engine. Names like Thule Tachyonator and Vril Power Unit appeared in the documents. They meant nothing to aeronautical science. Instead, they belonged to the Reich's world of esoteric societies. The Thule Society, devoted to Nordic myth. The Vril Society, built on the idea of an all-pervading energy force, a power that could heal or destroy, mastered only by those who knew its secrets. Archival claims suggest Heinrich Himmler and his inner circle believed in these myths strongly enough to fund research, and from those shadows emerged the story of Maria Orsic, a medium from Vienna said to have led the Vril Society's inner circle. She allegedly received instructions not from earthly engineers but from distant voices, dictating designs for a craft powered by energy fields instead of fuel. She vanished in 1945. Some say she died. Others believe she left, in one of the craft she described. If she was a fraud, why does her name resurface again and again in conspiracy files tied to Nazi aviation? The SS left a trail of obsession that cannot be dismissed. Himmler turned Wewelsburg Castle into a temple of runes and rituals. Expeditions were dispatched to Tibet, the Andes, the Middle East, searching for ancient knowledge, artifacts, and forgotten sciences. If the Reich was willing to scour the earth for myth, then the idea of a Vril engine was not fiction. It was ambition. The Haunebu diagrams describe propulsion based on counter-rotating magnetic fields, a concept dismissed at the time, but echoed later in fringe physics. In the 1950s and 60s, American defense projects quietly studied field propulsion and anti-gravity. Was this coincidence, or the continuation of research seized in 1945? Was America chasing a dream, or trying to recreate something already built? The image of the Nazi saucer is now iconic, a disc-shaped craft, steel against a stormy sky, marked with crosses or the SS sigil. To some, it is the ultimate symbol of Nazi propaganda, terror through myth. To others, it is the trace of technology that slipped away before the war ended. If the Foo Fighters were glimpses of something hidden, and if the blueprints were more than fantasy, then the Haunebu and Vril projects may not be legend at all. They may be the remnants of a program so secret that no wreckage, no files, and no witnesses were ever meant to survive. And if that is true, then the greatest weapon of the Reich was never deployed, never captured, and never explained. It simply vanished, leaving behind only the myth of Nazi UFOs. The war ended. The Reich was gone. But of its most advanced machines, there was nothing. No wreckage, no prototypes, only silence. And that silence made intelligence officers wonder what had slipped away. Allied forces combed through ruins across Germany. They found jet fighters, ballistic missiles, rocket parts. They uncovered laboratories where scientists had tried to split the atom. But of the rumored discs, no trace. The Foo Fighters vanished. The sketches of circular craft stopped appearing, as though an entire chapter of research had been removed. Then came the disappearances. A handful of specialists, linked by rumor to the Reich's most secret projects, were never seen again. That absence gave rise to the first whispers. In the final months of the war, convoys of German U-boats were said to have slipped quietly out of Europe, bound for the South Atlantic. Some were intercepted, many were not. What cargo was so precious that men would risk everything to flee across oceans with the world collapsing behind them? Theories pointed south, to Antarctica. The frozen continent had fascinated the Reich for years. In 1938, a German expedition to Queen Maud Land claimed a swath of territory as Neuschwabenland. Photographs from the mission showed strange ice formations and barren valleys said to be free of snow. Officially, it was a whaling and mapping mission. Unofficially, researchers wondered if it was the beginning of something larger. After 1945, the whispers grew louder. Antarctica, some said, was not just empty ice. It was a vault, a refuge where advanced technology could be hidden away from Allied hands. Those rumors took on new life in 1947, when the United States launched Operation High Jump, a massive naval expedition to Antarctica, led by Admiral Richard Byrd. Officially, it was training in polar conditions. Unofficially, many questioned why it required 13 ships, dozens of aircraft, and thousands of men. Even stranger, the operation was cut short. Byrd's expedition was scheduled to last 6 months. It ended after 8 weeks. No clear reason was ever given. Not long after, a South American newspaper published a story claiming Byrd warned of flying objects that could travel from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Whether authentic or a distortion, the statement fed directly into the growing myth of Nazi UFOs. If the discs had survived, Antarctica seemed the place they might have gone. At the same time, reports of strange sightings began emerging across South America. Civilians in Argentina and Chile described discs gliding silently above mountain ranges. Both countries became havens for former SS officers who fled Europe. Was it coincidence that the same lands where fugitives settled also became hotspots for unexplained craft? And then, 1947 again, the year the modern UFO era began. Kenneth Arnold's sighting over Washington state described objects darting like saucers skipping across water. Weeks later came Roswell, the most famous alleged crash in history. Official explanations spoke of weather balloons and experimental aircraft, but some researchers saw a different pattern. The war ends, Foo Fighters vanish, and suddenly discs appear in American skies. Intelligence files from this period confirm that both the CIA and the Soviet NKVD monitored rumors of German discs. Reports mentioned sightings of fast-moving craft, whispered of test flights in remote regions, and noted the disappearance of German engineers. Nothing was proven, yet the very act of investigation suggests that the myth was treated as more than fantasy. Antarctica remained the most dramatic stage for the story. Beneath its ice lie valleys warmed by hidden heat, vast caverns large enough to conceal entire facilities. Mountains honeycombed with tunnels could hide anything from submarines to aircraft hangars. To many, it was the perfect hiding place, remote, uninhabited, and almost impossible to reach. Were Nazi discs truly hidden there, or were they smuggled into South America, rebuilt in secret hangars, or seized by superpowers eager to turn rumor into reality? No one knows, but the pattern is undeniable. As one war ended, another began, not for territory or armies, but for the secrets of machines that may never have been meant to exist. And if even a fragment of the story is true, then the greatest escape of 1945 was not of men or gold. It was of technology, slipping into the shadows, leaving only sightings, rumors, and questions that remain unanswered to this day.